sometimes. The quietest men carry the heaviest stories. Michael Cross was just a single dad who wanted to check an old balance his late father told him never to forget. Nothing more. Nothing special. But the moment he stepped into the Defense Financial Center, wearing his worn maintenance jacket, holding a yellowed envelope, something extraordinary began. A room full of high-ranking officers laughed at him, until one code, one frozen screen, and one long-buried secret changed everything. What happened next stunned the entire military, and it all started with a simple request. I just need to check my balance. Before we begin, if you enjoy heartwarming stories about kindness, quiet heroes, and the miracles that still happen in everyday life, we'd love to have you with us. Please consider subscribing to our channel for more inspiring stories just like this one. Your support truly means the world to us. The Defense Financial Center was not a place for men like Michael Cross. At least that was what everyone seemed to believe the moment he stepped through its towering glass doors. Morning light spilled across the marble floors, reflecting off chrome pillars and the polished badges of the uniformed officers, who moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Michael walked in quietly, wearing the same worn maintenance uniform he had worn for years, olive green soft, from countless washes patched at the elbows and along the right thigh, where years of work had worn it thin. His boots were scuffed, his hair long and brushed back behind his shoulders, the black strands slightly curled from the humidity of the Virginia coast. He didn't look like a man who belonged in the Defense Financial Center. He looked like a man who was just trying to make it through the day, but in his hand, held with a tenderness that stood in contrast with the ruggedness of his clothes, was a small yellowed envelope, creased, weathered, almost fragile. His father's handwriting, fading but unmistakable, ran across the front. Michael, on this day, go to the Defense Financial Center. Do not delay. He hadn't understood it when the letter arrived months earlier. He understood it even less now, as he stood at the front desk and stated with the quiet dignity that had become second nature to him. I need to check a balance. The young clerk blinked at him, then blinked again. Balance? Yes. Sir, this is the VIP Financial Department. You need a referral, an appointment, or clearance. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. Are you sure you're in the right place? Michael simply nodded. My father told me to come today. But before the clerk could respond, a ripple spread across the lobby as a group of high-ranking officers in full-dress uniform entered the hall, led by a woman whose presence shifted the air like a sudden change in weather. Commander Dana Keaton. Her navy blue fleet commander uniform bore medals so numerous they formed twin rows of gleaming metal across her chest. Her posture was impeccable, her stride confident, her gaze sharp enough to cut through nonsense at 50 yards. The officers behind her seemed to inhale her composure as though following a gravitational pull. She was everything people whispered about her: disciplined, unshakable, brilliant, and famously intimidating. And she was headed directly toward the desk where Michael stood. The clerk immediately straightened posture, snapping into attention as Dana approached. Commander Keaton. Good morning, ma'am. Dana gave a brief nod and a perfunctory smile, professional, restrained. Morning. Let's move the meeting to conference room A. Her eyes, scanning the area out of habit, landed on Michael, a man in old maintenance clothes, standing in the restricted VIP zone, holding a yellow envelope, looking calm. Too calm. What's this? Dana asked with a light edge, turning toward the clerk. The clerk tried to whisper, but her voice trembled. Ma'am, he says he wants to check his balance. Dana's eyes flicked back to Michael, amusement flashing in them. His balance? One of the officers snorted. Another smirked. A third muttered under his breath. He probably thinks there's an ATM in here. Dana's mouth curved. "Sir, this is not a bank lobby. This is a military financial intelligence center." Michael nodded with that same quiet calm. "I know." She studied him, his clothes, his boots, the envelope. No ID badge, no clearance lanyard. Nothing that explained why he had crossed into a world surrounded by rank and hierarchy. "And you need to check your balance," she repeated, letting a soft laugh escape. "That's new." Michael wasn't offended or irritated. He simply waited for the laughter to fade his posture, steady his gaze respectful but unflinching. That was what caught her attention. This wasn't the look of a man who had wandered in by mistake. This was a man who knew why he came, even if she didn't. "What's in the envelope?" Dana asked, her voice shifting from amused to curious. Michael held it up slightly. "Something my father left for me. Something I was told to bring here. Today." The officers behind her traded glances. The laughter softened. The smirks dimmed. "Your father was—" Dana pressed. Michael hesitated, not out of secrecy, but out of humility. A quiet man. A good man. He didn't talk about his work much. Dana leaned back slightly, folding her arms, something about his answer poking at a memory she couldn't quite touch. Before she could explore it further, the sharp sound of small footsteps echoed across the marble floor. Daddy. A little girl in a sunflower yellow dress and a ponytail bounced toward them. Kara Cross, 8 years old, and full of the boundless sincerity that only children seem to possess, wrapped her arms around her father's waist. Several officers chuckled automatically. Dana couldn't help a smile either, unexpected, involuntary. Kara looked up at Michael, then at the group of officers staring at them. "Daddy, are these your friends?" The clerk choked. A lieutenant turned away to hide his laughter. Dana covered her mouth with 2 fingers, her shoulders shaking with silent amusement. "Not exactly, sweetheart." Michael placed a steady hand on Kara's back, grounding her as he always did. "She's my daughter?" "Of course she is," Dana murmured, noting the resemblance in the eyes, soft, steady, quietly brave. Her humor faded, just a little, replaced by a faint, unexpected warmth. But then Michael extended the envelope toward her. "Commander, I was told you're the highest-ranking officer on duty today." Dana blinked, some instinct awakening a shift, subtle but unmistakable. "Yes, that's correct. Then this is for you to open." And just like that, laughter died in the room. The air tightened. Dana slowly reached for the envelope, the smile fading from her lips. The paper was old. Too old. The seal. Military. The kind of seal she had seen only a handful of times in her career, always tied to operations buried deeper than classified files. Her gloves brushed the envelope, and a shiver ran down her spine. She looked up at Michael again, but this time without amusement. "Who was your father?" she asked softly. Michael exhaled, eyes distant yet grounded. Someone who never laughed at another man's struggle. Donna froze. The line hit her harder than she expected. Behind her, even the officers went silent. Something was happening, something none of them had expected when they laughed at the man who just wanted to check his balance. Dana held the envelope a moment longer, feeling the weight of it shift the room. And in that instant, for the first time, she didn't see a janitor. She saw a man standing in the wrong place, or perhaps exactly where he was meant to be. The moment Commander Dana Keaton held the envelope, something in the air changed. Not dramatically, not loudly, but with the quiet, undeniable drop in temperature that happens when a room realizes instinctively that it may have made a mistake. Still, habit is a stubborn thing. "Let's give him what he wants," one of the lieutenants muttered with a half grin, trying to bring back the earlier amusement. "Let the man check his balance. Maybe he's sitting on $12, another officer chuckled. The clerk forced a smile, though nerves twitched at the corner of her mouth. Even Dana's lips twitched with a lingering sense of disbelief, though the amusement had lost its edge, replaced with something else. Something quieter. Something sharper. "Very well," she said, sliding the envelope between her fingers. "We'll take a look." Michael didn't respond with pride or defiance, or even hope. He simply nodded, as if this moment was nothing more than fulfilling a promise, made long ago. "Daddy, is this why we came?" Kara whispered, clinging to his side. Michael smoothed her hair gently. "Yes, sweetheart." The softness in his voice contrasted with the cold, structured steel of the lobby. Even Dana felt the shift, another subtle pull toward this man she had dismissed moments earlier. "Conference room B," she ordered, and just like that the doors opened, and they walked inside. The room was a long, narrow space with frosted windows and a polished walnut table stretching almost the length of the floor. Computer screens glowed dimly at each station, waiting for command input, like soldiers at parade rest. The officers took their positions. Dana sat at the head of the table, the envelope before her, like a relic. "Let's start with the envelope," she said, quietly. Michael placed it gently on the table. "My father told me to bring this here today. And only today." Dana felt another chill. Men who speak like that usually come from a world she knows well, the world of orders followed, not because they are written, but because they are understood. "Very well," she murmured. She broke the seal. Inside was a small metallic card. Sleek black, no label, no classification markings. Black Shield clearance cards never had markings. That was the point. Dana's breath caught for a split second. One of the younger officers frowned at it. "What?" Is that Dana didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at Michael. "Your father gave this to you?" "Yes." "And he never explained." Michael shook his head. "My father wasn't a man who explained things. He did what he believed was right. And he trusted I'd understand when the time came." Dana swallowed. There it was again, that quiet weight behind his words. Not arrogance, not ignorance. Something heavier. She turned to the IT officer. "Input the card." He hesitated. "Ma'am, are you sure? If this is," I said, "input it." He obeyed. As soon as the Black Shield card slid into the reader, the monitors flickered, then glowed red, then flashed the stark, unmistakable emblem. Class 3 access requested. Authorization required. A low murmur rippled around the room. Two officers straightened instinctively, their training overriding their curiosity. Commander Keaton stopped breathing for half a second. "This can't be real," one officer whispered. "Black Shield. That program doesn't even officially exist." Another officer scoffed nervously. "Maybe it's just an old prototype. Could be outdated. Could be nothing." But the system didn't agree. The lights dimmed. A warning tone echoed, once deep, resonant, authoritative. And then the monitor displayed a single line: "Enter secondary key." Dana turned slowly toward Michael. "There's more in the envelope," she said. Michael nodded. He opened the remaining flap and removed a folded letter. The paper was aged edges, yellowed, faintly smelling of cedar his father always kept, cedar blocks in his trunk. He unfolded it carefully. A single handwritten line stared back. Dana watched as he placed the letter beside the card reader, his hand steady. "What does it say?" she asked. Michael read it quietly. "It says..." He paused. "The boy who stands with dignity will one day hold the shield." The room fell silent. Utterly. Even Kara, who had been fidgeting with her dress, went still as she sensed the gravity rising around her. Dana leaned back, slightly studying Michael with new intensity. This wasn't the message of an ordinary man. This wasn't a father leaving a sentimental note. This was a coded phrase, one she recognized, one tied to an operation she had only heard of in classified briefings, and even then, only in whispers. The IT officer entered the phrase into the system. The moment he pressed enter, the entire wall monitor froze. Not glitched, not lagged. Froze. The system locked. The warning tone turned into a steady hum. A red border pulsed around the screen like a heartbeat. "I've never seen this," the IT officer whispered. "Ma'am, this is beyond level 7. Another officer muttered. "Why would a janitor have this?" "Because he's not a janitor," someone else whispered back. Michael said nothing. He simply held Kara's hand, thumb stroking the back of hers, gently, a gesture so small, yet so grounding, that Dana couldn't look away. She rose slowly from her seat, the leather creaking as she stood. "Mr. Cross," she said, voice low, steady, and entirely free of the amusement she'd held earlier. "Who was your father?" Michael looked up at her, not defensively, not proudly, but with a sincerity that disarmed the entire room. He was someone who believed that respect isn't earned by rank. Michael said quietly, or medals, or power. He believed a man's worth is measured by whether he can stand tall without making someone else smaller. Dana's breath left her chest. The words hit harder than any classified data ever could. Kara squeezed her father's hand. "Daddy always stands tall," she whispered. Dana felt something shift inside her, unexpected, unsettling, and impossible to ignore. The room that had laughed minutes earlier now sat frozen. Not by fear, but by realization. Something was happening here. Something big. Something buried beneath layers of secrecy and years of silence. And Michael Cross, quiet, humble, unassuming, stood at the center of it. As Dana held his gaze, she knew one thing for certain. The laughter was over. The room felt colder than the air conditioning could explain. Every pair of eyes, uniformed, disciplined, trained to withstand pressure, was locked on the frozen screen, framed in the pulsing red border of a level 3 Black Shield access breach. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence that filled the room was so absolute that the faint hum of the ventilation system suddenly sounded deafening. Commander Dana Keaton's jaw tightened, not in anger, but in something far rarer disbelief. She had overseen thousands of security reviews, handled emergencies across 3 continents, commanded fleets and personnel with the kind of poise that earned her respect even among those who feared her. She had been trained to remain unshaken. But this was something she had never seen. "Is the system frozen, or is it waiting?" she asked quietly. The IT officer, Lieutenant Hargrove, a man whose confidence usually bordered on arrogant, swallowed hard. His fingers hovered above the keyboard without touching it. "It's not frozen, ma'am," he whispered. "It's listening." Dana's heartbeat skipped. Listening. Black Shield systems didn't freeze. They paused. They waited. They observed. Only for people who had permission to wake them. And the only people who had that kind of access clearance were men and women, whose faces lived in sealed files. Men and women who in many cases no longer existed in official records. Men like the father of Michael Cross. Dana slowly turned to the man standing near the long walnut table. Michael looked almost painfully calm. Too calm for what was unfolding, his large hand resting protectively on Kara's small shoulder. His posture wasn't aggressive. It wasn't defensive either. He stood like a man who had learned to live with gravity as a companion, not an enemy. "Mr. Cross," Dana said, lowering her voice even more. "Do you have any idea what this access level means?" Michael shook his head. "No, my father never told me anything specific. He just said I would understand one day, that I should come here. Today." "Why today?" Dana pressed. Michael didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into the envelope once more, pulling out a second, smaller folded slip of paper he hadn't noticed before. His father's handwriting again. A short line. He unfolded it. Dana saw his throat tighten subtly. "What does it say?" she asked. Michael inhaled deeply, then read aloud. "Son, some doors open only once." The officers shifted uneasily. Lieutenant Hargrove stepped back as though the words themselves were dangerous. Dana's eyes narrowed, her mind racing. Some doors open only once, not a warning, a timing key. And suddenly she knew the system wasn't waiting for a code. It was waiting for recognition. Lieutenant Dana said sharply, "Activate biometric scan." Hargrove flinched. "Ma'am?" "That could trigger." I said, "Activate." He obeyed, tapping a command onto the secondary console. A thin beam of blue light swept across the room from the wall-mounted sensor. It scanned the table, the officers, Dana. Then it hit Michael. There was a soft tone, not an alarm, not a rejection, a chime, a confirmation. Identity partial match cross authorized lineage, secondary access permissible. Everyone froze, even Kara, who looked up at her father with wide, startled eyes. Dana stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your father had a shadow file." Michael didn't respond, but the way his eyes darkened, not with fear, but with something heavier, older, told Dana all she needed to know. He suspected. Maybe not in detail, but he had always known his father lived in a world beneath the surface. Hargrove stammered, "Ma'am, we need to complete the access. It's asking for his confirmation." Michael, Dana said softly, "Would you please place your hand on the scanner?" Kara clutched his sleeve. "Daddy, will it hurt?" "No, sweetheart," Michael said with a gentle smile, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Nothing here will hurt us." His certainty steadied the room more than any rank could have. Michael walked toward the biometric panel. Each step echoed with quiet inevitability. He placed his palm on the glass. The machine activated instantly. Lines of encrypted data rolled across the screen like a waterfall of secrets that had been held for decades. The officers leaned in, unconsciously drawn by the gravity of the moment. Dana's chest tightened. She had spent her life seeking truth, order, and structure. But nothing could have prepared her for the line that appeared next. Account located, status active, clearance verified, displaying primary data. Then the numbers appeared. 6 digits, a comma, 3 more, another comma, 3 more. A number so large, so staggering that even seasoned officers blinked in disbelief. But the money wasn't what made Dana's breath catch. It was the line below it. Account holder Commander Elias Cross, KIA, 14 years ago. Successor Michael James Cross, sole beneficiary. A thunderous silence fell over the room. Michael exhaled slowly, the truth crashing into him with a weight that felt both crushing and clarifying. My father was... He couldn't finish the sentence. Donna did. One of ours. And not just any one of ours. Michael's father had been a legend inside the fleet, even though his name was spoken only in private rooms and hushed tones. Elias Cross had saved countless lives, including Dana's unit during a covert rescue operation she had never forgotten. She suddenly saw Michael in a new light, not because of the number on the screen, not because of the clearance, but because of the look in his eyes. A man who had never asked for anything. A man who never flaunted what was his. A man who valued dignity more than recognition. Dana stepped closer, drawn to something she couldn't name. "Michael," she said quietly. "Why did you never tell anyone who your father was?" Michael looked down at Cora, his anchor, his reason, and placed his hand on her head. "Because a name is just noise," he said softly. "My daughter deserves peace, not shadows." Dana's breath trembled, not visibly, not audibly, but enough that Michael noticed. She had commanded fleets without blinking, but this man with his quiet voice and worn boots had made her heart skip. Before she could say anything else, The overhead speaker crackled with static. Then a voice, urgent sharp, cut through the silence. "Commander Keaton, we have a situation." Unauthorized signals detected outside the facility. Donna stiffened. Everything froze again, but not the screen this time. The world outside had just changed, and nothing was going back to normal. The emergency announcement faded into static, but the unease it left behind hovered thick in the air. For a moment, no one moved. Officers exchanged glances, fingers hovering near holsters they hoped they wouldn't need. Kara tucked herself closer into Michael's side, sensing the shift, instinctively the way children do. Commander Dana Keaton stood completely still. Her posture remained firm, her jaw tight, but her mind was racing, pulling at threads of memory connecting dots she never imagined would align on an ordinary morning inside a financial hall. Or perhaps this day was never meant to be ordinary at all. Lieutenant Dana set her voice sharp again. "Lock down the outer lobby. Move civilian staff to the interior zones and initiate sweep protocols." "Yes, ma'am," officers scattered like trained currents of electricity. But Dana didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the old envelope in front of Michael, the one that had already changed everything, and was about to change even more. "Michael." Her voice softened. He looked at her steady and patient as though he'd spent his entire life preparing for difficult truths. "There's more in the envelope," Dana said quietly. "Letters like this. They're rarely just one message." Michael seemed to understand. His father wasn't a man who wasted words. If he had left a second slip, there could be more layers of instruction written for a future he somehow foresaw. Carefully, almost reverently, Michael reached back into the envelope. His fingers brushed against old paper. Not one sheet. Several. He pulled them out. 3 folded letters bound with a thin piece of string. Each one bore a year in his father's handwriting. 2009, 2014, 2021. Kara's small fingers curled around his arm. "Daddy." "What is that?" Michael didn't answer. Not yet. The room grew still again. Donna stepped closer, the medals on her uniform glinting under the fluorescent light. "Open the oldest one," she said softly. Michael nodded. He untied the string, unfolded the brittle paper. The handwriting was unmistakable, the firm, disciplined strokes of a man who had lived his entire life by duty. He read silently, then aloud. "Michael, if you are reading this, I may not be there to explain the past. I wanted to protect you from the world I lived in, one built on secrets, sacrifice, and shadows that follow long after the war ends. But you deserve to know the account you access today is part of a reconstruction fund. It must never fall into the wrong hands. And if the time has come for you to see it, then those hands are searching again." The room absorbed every word. Officers froze mid-step. Dana's eyes narrowed with a pain only someone familiar with war could fully understand. Michael swallowed hard and continued. "You may be watched. You may be followed. That is why I raised you to live quietly. Dignity is protection. Humility is armor. But when the moment comes, you must step forward." Michael's voice broke barely but enough. He lowered the paper. It trembled slightly between his fingers. Donna inhaled slowly. "Your father? He wasn't just military intelligence. Elias Cross was something else, something higher." Michael didn't answer because deep down he already knew. She gestured to the next letter. "Read the one from 2014. Michael unfolded the second paper. This time, the words struck deeper because they weren't instructions. They were memories. "My son, when you were 10, you carried your sister home in a storm because she twisted her ankle. When your mother died, you held Kara through the night, even though you were breaking. You stood by me at the funeral when everyone else disappeared. That is why you can be trusted with what comes next." Michael closed his eyes. For a moment he couldn't speak. Donna didn't rush him. She simply stood beside him, closer than an officer was supposed to stand, close enough that he felt the warmth of her presence against the cold weight of the words. Kara tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, Grandpa loved you a lot." He knelt down, held her. "I know, sweetheart." When he rose again, Dana nodded toward the final letter. "Finish it." Michael opened the third note, the newest, dated 2021, written only a year before Elias Cross's death. These words were different, sharper, urgent. "Michael, the enemy we faced years ago will one day discover your name. If they have not found you yet, they will. When they do, you must trust someone in uniform. One will come. She will not know why she's drawn to help you, but she will. Do not be afraid of her strength. She carries the legacy of those I once saved." The page shook only slightly as Michael read the last line. "Tell her I never forgot." Michael looked up sharply. Dana felt something inside her chest tighten, something she had buried long ago beneath the armor of command. "Commander," Michael said quietly, "my father mentioned someone he saved. 14 years ago. A mission he never spoke of." Dana's breathing halted. 14 years ago. A mission gone wrong, her unit pinned down, 3 days in enemy territory. And a man, a ghost of a man, who pulled them out one by one under gunfire and moonlight. A man whose face she never fully saw. A man whose voice she never forgot. "He saved me," Dana whispered, her voice barely audible. "Your father saved my life." Michael stared at her, really stared, as though he were seeing her for the first time. And Dana realized something with a gentleness that startled her. This was no longer about a frozen screen or a secret account. This was about destiny, about 2 lives connected long before they ever met. A knock on the glass broke the moment. An officer rushed in, breathless. "Commander, unauthorized vehicles approaching the east checkpoint. Blacked out windows, no identification. They're ignoring the guards." Dana straightened instantly, her commanding presence snapping back into place. "Lock down the center," she ordered. "Move all essential personnel to the core." She turned to Michael and Kara. "Stay close to me," she said, her voice firm but warm. "Both of you." Kara nodded without hesitation. Michael looked at Dana, not with fear, but with the calm determination of a man who had already accepted his place in this unfolding storm. "Commander," he said steadily, "my father left me all of this, but he didn't leave it for me." Donna held his gaze. "No," she agreed softly. "He left it for the world." She reached out an instinct, a connection she didn't fight. Her hand brushed his arm. "Michael, I will protect you both. I swear it." For the first time that morning, Michael allowed himself a small, grateful smile. "Then let's face whatever is coming," he said. Together, the alarm lights along the ceiling shifted from steady white to pulsing amber, washing the hallway in a warm but threatening glow. Officers hurried in synchronized formation boots, striking the tile in sharp rhythm radios, crackling with tense updates. "Commander Keaton, unidentified vehicles have reached the east checkpoint. Blacked out SUVs. Multiple. No plates. They're refusing to stop." The voice over the comms grew tighter with every transmission. Dana didn't panic. She never had. But something primal surged through her instinct, sharpened by years of command, by battles fought overseas, and by the lingering scars of missions that never made the headlines. They were here. Not the curious. Not the misguided. The hunters. Michael Cross's presence had woken something buried, and the shadows that once hunted his father had finally come for the sun. But this time, the sun wasn't alone. Dana turned sharply. "Lieutenant Hargrove, lock down every door leading to this wing. I want 2 guards at each access point." "Yes, ma'am, Keller," she barked at another officer escort civilian staff to the sub-level safe zones. "No discussion." "Yes, Commander voices rose. Footsteps surged. Orders collided. But the center of the storm remained still. Michael. He stood beside the table, one arm wrapped gently around Kara's shoulders, the old envelope tucked under his other hand. His expression was unreadable, calm, solemn, and focused. Kara looked up at him with wide eyes. "Daddy, are those bad people?" Michael hesitated, but only for a breath. "Some people want things that don't belong to them," he answered softly, "and they'll do anything to take them." Kara nodded slowly, absorbing the truth with the bravery of a child raised by a good man. Dana stepped toward them. "Michael," she said firmly, "we're moving you both to the interior command room. It's the safest place." He met her eyes. "You don't have to." "Yes," she interrupted. "I do." Her voice carried no uncertainty, no formality, no distance. This wasn't just military protocol. It was personal. "Your father saved my life," Dana said quietly. "Today, I protect yours." A flicker of emotion crossed Michael's face. Gratitude mingled with a weight he had carried alone for too long. Dana motioned toward the hallway. "Stay beside me. Do exactly as I say." Michael nodded, lifting Kara into his arms. She wrapped her arms around his neck, trusting him completely. The three of them moved together as the doors behind them sealed with a metallic thud. The interior corridors were stark, concrete steel, reinforced with layers of security. As they moved deeper, Dana noticed how naturally Michael adjusted his pace to match Kara's breathing. How he kept his body slightly angled, always between her and any potential threat. Not frantic, not trembling, just steady. A protector, exactly like his father. As they reached the inner junction, another officer rushed toward Dana, face pale. "Commander, ma'am, the SUVs. They've stopped. Men are exiting. Tactical gear." "They're splitting into 2 teams, armed?" Dana asked. "Most likely, yes." Dana exhaled slowly. "They're here for the Black Shield account," she murmured. "They've known about it for years. But without the successor's biometric identity, they couldn't access it." Her eyes shifted to Michael. "They needed you." And my daughter, Michael added quietly, "If they were willing to hunt my father, they won't hesitate with us." Dana's expression hardened with protective fire over my dead body. Kara rested her head against Michael's shoulder, watching Dana with surprising calm. "I like her, Daddy," she whispered. "She's brave." Michael managed a faint, bittersweet smile. "Yes," he said softly. "She is." Dana caught the exchange, and something warm flickered beneath the steel of her discipline. A warmth she had convinced herself she no longer possessed. But there was no time to dwell. They reached the final security door, thick reinforced steel, with retinal and passcode access. Dana placed her hand on the scanner. "Commander Dana Keaton, authorization Echo Delta 9. A soft chime, a click. The door unlocked. As they entered the command room, multiple screens flickered to life. Live surveillance footage showed movements outside the SUVs, the figures in tactical attire helmets masking their faces. "Ma'am, a sergeant reported they're attempting to breach the east glass panels." Dana leaned over the monitors. "Activate external barriers and deploy containment units. No lethal force unless absolutely necessary." "Understood." Michael placed Kara gently in a chair, kneeling before her. "You stay right here," he whispered, brushing a lock of hair from her forehead. "Don't move unless I tell you." She nodded bravely, but her eyes shimmered with worry. "Daddy, will they hurt you?" Michael pulled her close. "Not while I'm breathing." Dana watched them and felt something shift deep in her chest. This man wasn't a soldier anymore, but he carried the instincts of one, not forged in training, but in love and sacrifice, just like his father. The monitors beeped sharply. Commander, the sergeant shouted, "They're deploying a signal jammer, attempting to block internal communications." Dana grabbed the radio. All units switch to secondary channel. Protect the east sector. Do not let them cross the inner threshold." A burst of static answered. The jammer was already biting into their systems. Dana slammed the radio onto the table, frustration mixing with fear she refused to show. Michael stepped beside her. "What can I do?" Dana looked up slowly. For the first time that day, she didn't see a janitor, a civilian, or the son of a legend. She saw capability. Calm. Resolve. "You stay with your daughter," Dana said softly. "I promised your father, if fate ever brought us together, I would protect you both." Michael swallowed. It wasn't often that someone fought for him. He had spent his life protecting others, his daughter, his memories, the promise he made to his father. But now, here was a commander, a woman who had led fleets standing in front of him, choosing to protect him as fiercely as he protected Kara. "Dana," he said quietly, dropping the formality for the first time. "I'm not asking you to risk your life for us." Dana turned fully toward him. "It's not a risk," she answered. "It's a debt." Their eyes locked. Something unspoken, powerful, undeniable passed between them. Before either of them could speak again, a thunderous crash echoed through the monitors. The tactical team outside had begun their assault. Dana straightened. "Everyone get ready," she commanded. "They know he's here." And for the first time, Michael understood the full truth. This wasn't just his father's legacy. It was now his. The reinforced door sealed behind them with a heavy metallic thud, shutting out the faint echoes of boots' warnings and controlled chaos from the outer halls. Inside the command room, the atmosphere was entirely different. Quieter, dimmer, more intimate. Screens glowed softly around the perimeter, displaying maps, access logs, heat signatures of approaching hostiles. A dozen officers worked furiously, but the center of the room held a strange, suspended calm. Michael sat with Kara on his lap, holding her close, his large hand resting protectively on her back. The little girl leaned into his chest, listening to his heartbeat, as though it were the safest sound in the world. Commander Dana Keaton stood a few feet away, watching the two of them, with a mixture of emotions she didn't fully recognize, or perhaps didn't want to recognize too quickly. Duty demanded focus. But humanity whispered something else entirely. She approached quietly. "Michael," she said softly, "may I speak with you alone, just for a moment?" Michael nodded. "Kara, sweetheart," he whispered gently, "stay right here. I'll be close." Kara slid off his lap obediently. A young female officer knelt beside her, offering a comforting smile. Kara stayed quiet, braver than her age, a credit to the man who raised her. Dana led Michael toward a side alcove, a narrow space tucked between two large servers, quiet enough to talk without the weight of listening ears. For a moment, neither spoke. Dana was the one who broke the silence. "You're very calm," she said. Michael gave a faint smile. Panic never helped anyone. Dana folded her arms, studying him. "You don't act like a maintenance worker. I am one," he replied gently. "Not just one," Dana corrected. "Not with how you move. Not with how you assess a threat. Not with how you comfort a child in a crisis." She hesitated. "Your father taught you more than he ever wrote in those letters." Michael didn't deny it. He looked down at his hands, calloused, scarred slightly along the knuckles. Marks of someone who had worked hard, fought a little, lived a life that required more than just quiet survival. "My father believed," he began quietly, "that the world is full of men who shout and very few who stand still. He taught me that silence is strength, not fear, not weakness, just choosing not to use power unless it's needed." Dana's breath faltered. "That explains today," she said. "The lobby. Everyone laughing. And you just stood there." "I didn't want to embarrass anyone," Michael said simply. "They didn't know me. They just saw what I looked like. Dana felt something twist inside her: shame, regret, and a strange, unexpected admiration. "You weren't offended?" she asked. "No," Michael answered with sincerity. "Laughter only hurts when there's truth behind it." And there wasn't. Michael met her eyes. "I know who I am, Commander. A job title doesn't define that." Dana couldn't look away. She felt the weight of those words settle into her chest, warmer than she expected. "You could have told me who your father was," she said. Michael shook his head. "My father made me promise something. To live a quiet life. To raise Kara with peace. He didn't want me caught in the same world of shadows. He wanted me free." Dana's throat tightened. "You lived decades in the shadow of a man the entire intelligence world respects," she whispered. "And you chose obscurity." "No," Michael corrected softly. "I chose my daughter." It hit her harder than she wanted to admit, because she had sacrificed family for duty, because she had chosen oceans and war rooms and distant missions, because a part of her always wondered what she'd lost. She swallowed. Michael. All these years, was it lonely? He wasn't ashamed to answer. "Yes," he said. "But peace is often lonely, and Kara fills the rest." Dana's eyes softened. She glanced toward the command console's officers, typing furiously, alarms blinking. Danger was closing in. Yet in this small corner, time felt slower, softer, human, in a way that shocked her. "Your father," she said quietly, "once saved my unit. I never knew his name. He refused recognition. He slipped away before we could thank him." Michael nodded. "Yes, that sounds like him." Dana took a breath, then spoke with a raw honesty she rarely revealed. "Men like your father, they change you. They show you what honor really looks like. And men like you, men who carry that same gentleness and strength, are far rarer than you realize." Michael looked down, humbled in a way that almost hurt to witness. "I'm not a hero," he said. "No," Dana said softly. "You're something more dangerous. You're a good man." Michael tried to look away, but she stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "And good men," she said, "are the ones the world fears most when they finally choose to stand up." He felt that. He felt every word. Before either could say more, Kara's small voice called softly from behind them. "Daddy, Commander Dana." They both turned. Kara stood holding a glass of water the officer had given her, but her eyes were fixed on Dana, curious, warm, disarmingly open. Dana knelt instinctively, lowering herself to the child's height. "Are you scared?" Dana asked. Kara shook her head. "Daddy says scared means you care, and caring makes you braver." Michael's heart clenched with both pride and pain. Dana felt her chest warm. She reached out her hand slowly. Kara placed her small hand in Dana's without hesitation. Dana closed her fingers gently around the child's. A softness washed over her, a quiet vulnerability she hadn't allowed herself in years. Kara's presence was like a lighthouse in a storm, small, gentle, but impossibly bright. "You're very strong," Dana whispered to the girl. Kara tilted her head. "Daddy says strength is when you help someone, even if you don't have to." Dana swallowed hard. The child was describing her, and also describing Michael, and she realized the legacy of Elias Cross. In one simple gesture, Kara had tied them together. Michael stepped closer, resting a hand on his daughter's shoulder. He met Dana's gaze over the child's head. Something passed between them, an unspoken promise, a connection neither had asked for, but both had begun to accept. Then the intercom crackled again. "Commander Keaton, hostiles are breaching the east barrier." Dana stood instantly, her hand still gently resting on Kara's small one before she let go. The softness vanished. The commander returned. "Everyone to position," she barked. We hold them here. Michael lifted Kara into his arms again, his expression firm. Dana looked at him. Really looked. The silence inside him wasn't emptiness. It was history. It was strength. It was the echo of a man who had once saved her. And now she realized. Michael Cross wasn't just his father's son. He was the man fate had been quietly shaping, the man she would trust with her life, and the life of the child now holding her hand. Outside the command room, the sound of muffled impact shook the walls, dull thuds of reinforced glass under assault, distant shouts, boots pounding through the corridors as security teams moved to intercept intruders. The entire Defense Financial Center pulsed with urgency. Inside, though, an eerie stillness lingered around the central monitor, a stillness that felt like the moment before lightning meets the ground. The system had completed the biometric confirmation. Now, it was loading the final access data. Streams of encrypted numbers rolled vertically like falling rain. Each line reflected on Michael's face, his calm expression illuminated by classified information. He never asked for, never wanted, but suddenly bore the weight of. Dana stood beside him, rigid with authority, but softened by something she could no longer hide, a growing respect that surprised even her. Finally, the scrolling stopped. A single number filled the entire screen. 612. The room fell completely silent. Lieutenant Hargrove exhaled as if punched. Another officer whispered, "My God." Someone else stepped back, stunned. But Michael didn't flinch. He stared at the number with a strange, quiet sadness, as if the zeros weren't wealth, but the echo of a father who carried heavy burdens alone. Dana watched him closely. "You're not surprised," she murmured. Michael shook his head. "No." "Why not?" she pressed. "Because my father," he swallowed, "was the kind of man who would choose to suffer himself if it meant protecting something bigger." The words hit Dana harder than she expected. She felt emotion coil around her heart, warm and painful. Hargrove, still recovering, stammered, The account is tied to the Reconstruction Initiative, the one that was shelved after Operation Halbert." Dana raised a hand sharply. "Lieutenant." Not another word unless absolutely necessary. He snapped into silence. Dana stepped closer to Michael. "You do realize what this means, don't you?" Michael kept his eyes on the screen. "I think I do. This account," Dana said, lowering her voice to a near whisper, "was created to rebuild entire military infrastructures, entire Allied regions. If it falls into the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon," Michael finished. Dana nodded. "And the men outside, they're not here for you. They're here for this." Michael slowly exhaled as if a lifetime of quiet living had been leading to this moment. From the far corner of the room, Kara's small voice floated across the tension. Daddy Michael instantly turned. "Yes, sweetheart." Kara stood barefoot on the chair she'd been sitting on, hugging her stuffed bear, one she had pulled from Dana's emergency comfort kit. Her eyes held innocence and fear carefully balanced. "Why is everyone scared?" she asked softly. Michael crossed to her and knelt. Dana watched him, watched the way he steadied Kara's trembling hands with his own. "Because sometimes grown-ups forget what matters most," he said gently. "They fight over things they shouldn't. But I'm here, and Commander Dana is here. We won't let anything happen." Dana felt her throat tighten unexpectedly painfully. Kara looked over Michael's shoulder. Her big brown eyes landed on Dana. "Commander Dana," she whispered, "you're not scared." "Right." Dana held Kara's gaze. A woman who had commanded fleets, who had survived firestorms overseas, who had faced death with steady breath, felt something indescribable under the gaze of a child she'd known for less than an hour. "I'm not scared," Dana answered softly. "I'm responsible." Kara smiled. A small, fragile, trusting smile. A smile that melted something in Dana's chest. Before the silence could stretch any further, the intercom crackled again. "Commander Breach on the 2nd floor. Hostiles advancing down Corridor Delta." Dana straightened instantly, the softness replaced with iron. "Hold your positions," she ordered. "No one engages without visual confirmation. They want Michael. They do not get to him." Michael rose. "Donna," she turned sharply. The use of her first name sent a jolt through her, though she didn't show it. "You stay with your daughter," she said. Michael didn't back down. "My father left this because he believed I'd know what to do. Standing in a room while others fight. That's not who he raised." Dana exhaled slowly, a conflict written in her eyes. "You're not a soldier anymore," she said quietly. "No," Michael agreed. "But I'm still a father." He stepped closer, until only a few inches separated them. "And you're still the woman he trusted without ever meeting." Dana froze, not with fear, but at the truth of the words. The room swirled with tension charged, emotional, unspoken. Lieutenant Hargrove cleared his throat painfully. "Ma'am, we, need your orders." Dana tore her gaze from Michael and faced the screen again. The $612 million. The reconstruction rights. The classified authorizations tied to Michael Cross alone. "Lock the account," Dana commanded. Hargrove blinked. "Ma'am, lock the account." He hesitated. "But ma'am, once locked, only the successor can reopen it. And only in the presence of a fleet commander. That process could take months." "That's the point," Dana snapped. "No one gets this money. No one touches it. Not until we understand the entire situation." Hargrove rushed to comply, initiating the lock sequence. Michael watched silent and steady. The screen shifted again. Authorization required successor confirmation. Donna nodded to Michael. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the biometric pad. The system scanned. A soft chime rang. "Account locked. Unavailable until successor reauthorization." Dana exhaled the first true breath she'd taken in minutes. But as the tension eased slightly, Michael spoke quiet, but filled with conviction. "My father left this for a reason, and I need to do right by him." Dana faced him. "What do you think doing right looks like?" Michael didn't hesitate. "I won't take the money," he said. "It's not mine. It was never meant for me." Dana expected as much, but hearing him say it aloud stirred something deep inside her. But Michael continued, glancing back at Kara. "There are military families, children who lost everything when their parents never came home. I want a portion of the fund set aside to help them." Dana's breath caught. "Michael, that's..." He shook his head. "It's what my father would have done." Dana's eyes softened, not with admiration alone, but with something deeper. Something more personal. Something dangerous. Before she could speak, another explosion shook the outer corridor. The lights flickered. Officers grabbed weapons. Alarms blared. Dana turned toward the door, voice rising with authority. "Everyone to defensive positions. We hold the line. They're not taking him." Michael grabbed Kara protectively, Dana stepping instinctively between them and the door. For a single heartbeat, their eyes locked. Two lives shaped by the same man, one through blood, one through salvation, standing together on the brink of something far larger than either had anticipated. The laughter that filled the center just an hour before was gone, replaced now with resolved fear and an awakening respect. A storm was coming, and the man who just wanted to check his balance had become the eye of it. The sirens grew louder. Not the sharp, high-pitched fire alarms of civilian buildings, but a deeper, heavier tone, one reserved for threats that demanded the highest alert level. The kind of tone that made even seasoned officers tighten their stance and swallow hard. In the command room, the air thickened, charged with electricity and dread. A red glow pulsed across the perimeter screens as tactical overlays displayed incoming heat signatures. Multiple figures, moving in coordinated formation, pushing past outer barriers. They were getting closer. Dana's jaw locked with iron focus. Her hand hovered near her holster, not out of fear, but preparation. A commander ready to act. Michael, holding Kara against his chest, stepped back slightly to keep her behind him, his body instinctively shielding hers without conscious thought. Even now, his movements were calm, measured, protective, controlled. Dana glanced at him, a quiet man, a steady man, but the force behind his stillness, tremendous. She stepped toward him, keeping her voice low and steady. Michael, listen carefully. They are after the account, but if they can't access that, they'll go after the successor. Michael didn't flinch. I figured. And if they can't get the successor, Dana's eyes softened. They take the next leverage point. His gaze drifted to Kara. A shadow crossed his face, dark, primal, terrifyingly focused. Dana touched his arm, a rare gesture for her, an instinctive one. I won't let that happen, she whispered. Their eyes locked for a long, silent second. There was no rank between them in that moment. No title. Just two people bound by fear duty, and something unspoken taking shape between them. The door vibrated. A deep, heavy thud rattled the frame. Officers whipped around. Mam impact on the east interior barricade. Another thud. Louder. Closer. Followed by the unmistakable metallic groan of reinforced hinges under pressure. Dana turned sharply to the nearest guard. Reinforce the perimeter. No one fires unless it's a confirmed hostile. Yes, Commander. Kara whimpered softly, burying her face into Michael's chest. Daddy, are they coming in? Michael stroked her hair with a gentle, steady hand. Not while I'm standing here. Dana felt a warmth in her chest, unexpected and powerful. This man, without rank, without weapon, without training for years, possessed more courage than many soldiers she had commanded. The door shook again. Dust drifted from the frame. Dana pivoted toward the digital lock. Override to secure mode. But before she could reach it, the intercom crackled violently. Commander North Wing cameras down hostiles breached sub-corridor C. They're converging on your location. Dana's mind raced. She wasn't scared. Fear was a luxury she'd learned to live without long ago. But the stakes now were higher than any battlefield she'd ever stepped into. Because the life behind her wasn't another soldier. It was a child. She pressed her hand on Michael's shoulder. Follow me, she murmured. He didn't hesitate. He simply tightened his hold on Kara and stepped in sync with her. Dana navigated the command room to the reinforced tactical station, a corner protected by steel plating and a secondary barrier door. Stay behind this until I say otherwise, she told them. Michael positioned Kara in the deepest corner, kneeling down so she could cling to him. He kissed the top of her head, whispering something soft words Dana couldn't hear, but saw in Kara's calmer eyes. Another slam against the door. This time, it buckled an inch inward. Officers raised weapons. Dana stepped forward front line. Michael watched her. There was a fierce certainty in her posture. Shoulders squared stance. Balanced eyes focused on the threat with unshakable command presence. She looked every bit the fleet commander she was, one forged through fire and hardened by duty. He whispered under his breath, almost to himself. Now I see why my father trusted her. The door buckled again. Then, crack, a piece of reinforced steel dented inward, the lock sparking. Dana lifted her weapon. "Hold," she ordered sharply. "We don't fire until we know what we're firing at." Her heart pounded not for herself, but for the two people behind her. Michael whispered in Kara's ear, "Close your eyes, sweetheart." But she didn't. She looked past his shoulder, tiny hands gripping his shirt, and whispered, "Daddy, you're strong." Michael closed his eyes briefly, pain, love, and resolve washing through him. "I am," he said softly, "because of you." The door bent, just enough for a shadow to appear between the cracked hinges. "Commander, step back," an officer warned. Dana didn't move. She stepped forward. Then the door slammed open an inch enough for a gloved hand to reach through. Dana reacted in a flash, striking the arm and slamming her shoulder into the door to force it closed again. But another thud hit the other side. They were pushing from different angles. Ma'am Hargrove shouted. "We can't hold this long," Dana gritted her teeth. She was strong, but she was still one person. Another hit. The hinge snapped. A sliver of the outside hallway became visible. Boots, tactical armor, shadowed helmets. And then Michael stood. Dana saw movement from the corner of her eye. No, Michael, stay back. But he didn't. He stepped toward the failing door, placing himself between his daughter and the breach. His expression was calm, almost serene. The kind of calm that came not from lack of fear, but from absolute conviction. He placed a hand on the door, bracing his shoulder into the gap. The officers stared. Dana stared. This wasn't a soldier. He had no combat gear, no weapon, no armor thicker than his faded maintenance jacket. But he pushed, and the door shifted, and the breach slowed. "You don't have to do this," Dana hissed. Michael looked over his shoulder, eyes burning with a quiet fire she'd never seen before. "Yes," he said simply. "I do." And for the first time since the attack began, the officers saw him for who he was, a protector. A son carrying the weight of a legacy he never asked for. A father who would give his life before letting harm touch his child. Dana stepped beside him without hesitation. Their shoulders touched, two forces, bracing a weakened door against the world closing in. "Together," Dana whispered. Michael nodded. Together, the impact on the door finally slowed. Not because the attackers had given up, but because the combined resistance of Michael and Dana, two forces of nature fueled by purpose, had bought the officers enough time to establish a secondary barrier behind them. "Commander, backup teams are in position at Corridor Delta," a sergeant shouted. "We can hold this point now." Dana nodded sharply, stepping away from the door as it sealed again under reinforced clamps. Sweat trickled at her temples, but her breathing was steady. Michael stepped back as well, his chest rising and falling with a deep, controlled rhythm. He wiped a streak of dust from his forehead. Kara peeked from behind the tactical console, where she was hiding, eyes wide with alarm and admiration. "Daddy." "You pushed the door." Michael softened, kneeling so he met her gaze. "I pushed it because of you." Donna heard those words, and something inside her chest pulled taut. Then, as quickly as the danger had risen, the room shifted again. The officers relaxed only slightly, but enough for the next phase of the crisis to settle like a fog. Dana turned to Michael, her expression layered with resolve. "We need to decide what comes next." Michael rose slowly, Kara clinging to his arm. His eyes gentle, yet forged with quiet fire, met hers. "You read the letters," Dana continued. "You saw what your father intended. But this..." She gestured to the sealed accounts, the encrypted screens, the heavy defensive doors that still buzzed from impact. "This is more than inheritance. This is responsibility." Michael nodded. "I know." "And the decision is yours alone," Dana said. "Your father made that clear." Michael looked down at Kara, smoothing her hair with the same tenderness he'd carried since the moment he stepped into the building. "She deserves safety," he murmured. "A normal life." not the shadows. Dana stepped closer, not as a fleet commander, but as a woman who had lived her entire life in those shadows. Michael, if you walk away from this, the danger doesn't disappear. They know your name now. They know your face. They'll want you alive or gone. He stiffened. And Kara, his voice was barely a whisper. Dana's jaw tightened. They'll try to use her to get to you. The silence that followed was heavy, so heavy even the officers pretended not to hear it. After a long moment, Dana cleared her throat and motioned toward the encrypted monitor. There are 3 choices, Dana said, her voice calm but firm. 3 outcomes your father prepared you for. Michael took a slow breath. Tell me. Dana held his gaze. First, she said you could claim the entire account right now. All of it. You'd have the resources to protect yourself and Kara, but the danger would multiply. They would never stop coming. Michael shook his head instantly. No, I wouldn't put her through that. Second, Dana continued, you can choose delayed succession. The account remains locked until Kara is an adult. The funds stay untouched, hidden, safe. But until then, you'll live with a target on your back. A smaller one, but still a target. Michael closed his eyes briefly, imagining years of looking over his shoulder, holding Kara close at night, wondering who watched from the shadows. And the third, he asked quietly. Dana hesitated, not out of uncertainty, but out of respect. You can relinquish the account entirely, she said. Pass it to the Reconstruction Board. They'll dissolve it into national rebuilding initiatives. You walk away. The pursuit ends. The threat dies. Michael's breath caught. Walking away meant safety. But it also meant erasing the last tangible piece of his father's legacy. He stared at the encrypted screen, the ghostly flicker of his father's name glowing beneath the lock icon. I don't know if I can just abandon everything he protected, Michael whispered. Dana stepped closer, her voice softening. He didn't protect the money, Michael. He protected you. And Kara. Everything else was secondary. Michael turned toward her, slowly, deeply. In her eyes, he saw conviction, not the cold professional kind she wore on duty, but something warmer, anchored in truth. He exhaled shakily. Kara, Michael said, kneeling again and cupping her small face. If I could give you a life with no danger, no fear, I would. But I can't run forever. Not from this. Kara blinked up at him, confused and innocent. I don't need money, Daddy, she said. I just need you. The words hit him like a wave. Dana looked away for a moment, swallowing emotion she didn't expect. Michael rose. His decision was clear. He turned to Dana. I choose option 2. Dana's breath caught, not in surprise but in admiration. He continued, voice strong. I will keep the account locked until Kara is grown. It wasn't meant for me. It was meant for the future. And I want a portion, just a small part, to start a fund. Dana frowned gently. A fund, Michael nodded. For the children of fallen soldiers. For the kids whose parents didn't come home. It's the one thing that feels right. The one thing he would have wanted. Dana felt her chest swell with respect, pride, and something far deeper. You're a good man, Michael, she whispered. He looked down, humbled. I'm just trying not to fail him. Dana stepped closer, close enough that her breath brushed his cheek. You couldn't, she said softly. Not even if you tried. Before either could say more, the intercom blared again. Commander Keaton hostiles falling back. They're retreating from the east barrier. Why, Hargrove shouted. We didn't push them back. Another voice cut in this one. Urgent, shocked. Ma'am, the entire north wing, the soldiers there, they're standing at attention. Dana blinked. At attention for who? A beat of static. Then the voice whispered, for him. The man inside with you. Donna froze. Michael did too. Through the glass slit in the emergency door, figures became visible: soldiers, MPs, and officers lining the corridor in perfect formation. One by one, they raised their hands, a full salute, not to the uniformed commander, to the quiet man behind her, the one who never bragged, never demanded, never raised his voice, the good man who made the hardest choice. Michael Cross. For a long moment, the command room stood frozen, not because the danger had passed, but because the weight of what was happening felt unreal. Through the narrow reinforced glass, Dana, Michael, and the officers watched the line of uniformed personnel in the corridor shift into perfect formation. Like a tide pulled by unseen gravity, more soldiers arrived: military police, junior officers, senior non-coms, each one stepping into place, shoulders squared, boots aligned. Then as one, they saluted. Not toward the rank, not toward Commander Dana Keaton, not toward any badge or insignia. They saluted the man who stood quietly behind her, Michael Cross, the same man they had laughed at hours earlier, the same man they mistook for a lost janitor in worn fatigues, the same man who hadn't raised his voice even once. Michael stared at the sight, unmoving. A man who rarely let emotion rise now felt something swell in his chest: confusion, humility, grief, pride, all tangled together so tightly he could scarcely breathe. Kara clung to his shirt. "Daddy, why are they doing that?" Michael swallowed hard. I don't know, sweetheart." But Dana knew. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he would hear. "They know who your father was," she murmured. "And now they know who you are." Michael shook his head slightly, almost as if resisting the very idea. "I'm no hero, no," Dana agreed softly. "You're something rarer." He met her eyes. "A good man," she whispered, "and they can feel it." Behind them, Lieutenant Hargrove stood silently at attention, no longer smirking, no longer amused. Respect had settled into his expression with a depth that surprised even him. Dana turned to her team. "Open the door." Ma'am Hargrove blinked. "I said open it." The lockdown clamps disengaged with a heavy metallic click. The reinforced door parted a few inches, then fully revealing the hallway beyond. And there, as if orchestrated by fate itself, stood nearly 36 service members, lined across the corridor, creating a path straight to the lobby. Every single one kept their hand raised in salute. The moment Michael stepped into view, the corridor fell completely silent. Not a breath out of place, not a shuffle of boots, only reverence. Dana stood at his side. She didn't walk ahead. She didn't lead. She walked with him. Kara held his hand, her tiny fingers wrapped tightly around his. Her eyes widened as she took in the rows of saluting soldiers, awed and confused, but somehow sensing the gravity of the moment. Dana's voice was steady, and low meant only for him. "You came here for a simple reason: to keep a promise, to do right by your father. And that's exactly why they salute." Michael's eyes burned, though no tears fell. He wasn't a man who cried easily. He wasn't a man who bragged or demanded or asked for anything. So the respect hit him harder than bullets ever could. They walked slowly, Michael, Kara, and Donna, moving through the corridor flanked by soldiers, who lowered their salutes only when he passed them. Many bowed their heads. Some placed a fist over their heart. To them, he wasn't just the son of a hero. He was cut from the same cloth, a quiet force of dignity. As they approached the lobby, the last group of officers parted, revealing the massive open space bathed in afternoon light. The glass walls shimmered with reflections of the American flag swaying outside. And there, at the center of the lobby, every officer, every staff member, every soldier who had been there earlier, stood waiting. Many remembered laughing at him, mocking him, doubting him. Now they stood with straight backs and solemn faces, forming a wide path from the command hallway to the front entrance. When Michael stepped into the lobby, the room rose into silent attention, like a cathedral honoring the living. No one spoke. Even Kara sensed the reverence and held Michael's hand more gently. Dana walked half a step behind him, not out of superiority but respect. Michael paused, turning slightly toward her. "I didn't expect any of this," he said quietly. Dana smiled softly, genuinely. Respect comes late for quiet men. But when it arrives like a storm. At the front doors, the head of the security team, a senior master sergeant, stepped forward, saluted sharply, and spoke with a voice thickened by emotion. "Mr. Cross, on behalf of every soldier, whoever benefited from your father's sacrifice, and every one of us who witnessed your integrity today, thank you." Michael didn't know how to respond. His throat tightened. He simply nodded. The sergeant lowered his salute and opened the door for him. Sunlight spilled across the lobby floor as Michael stepped outside with Kara in his arms. Dana followed the weight of the moment, pressing quietly against her heart. They reached the steps outside the building. The afternoon wind brushed against them, soft, warm, like a gentle exhale from the world itself. Dana finally broke the silence. "You didn't ask for any of this," she said. "No," Michael replied. "But sometimes, doing the right thing gives you more than you expect." Dana studied him for a long, quiet moment. Then Kara tugged at Dana's sleeve. "Commander Dana." "Yes, sweetheart," Kara smiled shyly. "You should have dinner with us." Dana blinked. The strongest fleet commander in the region stunned by an 8-year-old. Michael's eyes widened slightly. "Kara." But Dana didn't laugh. She didn't deflect. Instead, a faint blush rose on her cheeks, something so rare and so soft that Michael felt his chest tighten. Dana inhaled, regaining her composure. "I would like that." "Very much." Kara clapped her hands. Michael smiled, really smiled. Something Dana realized she had never seen before today. They walked toward the parking lot together, the crisis behind them, and something new, something gentle, healing, hopeful beginning to take shape. Behind them, the lobby slowly emptied, but every soldier walked away with the same thought. It was the first time they had ever saluted a man not for what he did, but for who he was. The sun was setting behind the quiet suburbs of Norfolk, casting long golden beams through the kitchen window of the small, weathered house that Michael Cross had spent years turning into a home for him and Kara. The walls held memories. The wooden table bore tiny scratches from years of Kara's drawings. The old stove hummed its familiar rhythm. But tonight, the home felt different. Not louder, not busier, just fuller. Dana Keaton stood just inside the doorway, still in her duty uniform, but with an expression softer than anything she'd worn in years. The rigid fleet commander was gone for the evening. In her place was a woman allowing herself to simply be for the first time in a very long time. Michael stirred something on the stove, garlic, rosemary, a hint of lemon. The scent filled the kitchen with a warmth that wrapped itself around her. "You cook like a man who's used to feeding more than himself," Dana said gently. Michael glanced over his shoulder with a half smile. "Kara likes real food, and it helps me feel grounded." Dana stepped closer, running her hand along the back of one of the wooden chairs. Grounded sounds. Nice. There was no rank between them now. No crisis. No walls. Just a father, a daughter, and a woman who had lived too long in war rooms and steel corridors. Kara bounded into the kitchen, holding a drawing in one hand and her stuffed bear in the other. "Commander Dana, look, I drew us." Dana knelt smiling as Kara thrust the paper into her hands. 3 figures stood in crayon lines, Daddy, Kara, and Dana holding hands beneath a big yellow sun. Something in Dana's chest gave way. A small, quiet breaking, but not of pain, of release. "It's beautiful," Dana whispered. "It's us," Kara said, with the certainty only children possess. "Daddy said you're part of our life now." Michael froze for a second at the stove, surprised and slightly embarrassed. "Kara." Dana looked at him, not with amusement, but with something tender and unguarded. "Is that what you told her?" she asked softly. Michael turned fully to face her. "I told her," he said, voice low, "that some people walk into your life, and you just know they're meant to stay." Dana held his gaze. The air shifted, gentle, steady, warm. Kara tugged at Dana's sleeve. "Will you stay for dinner?" "Please." Dana smiled, small but sincere. "I wouldn't miss it." Dinner was simple, but filled with more peace than any banquet hall could ever hold. Kara chattered about school. Michael listened with the soft pride of a man who had built his world around a child's laughter. And Dana found herself smiling at moments. She didn't expect small jokes, tiny slips the way Michael nudged extra vegetables onto Kara's plate. After the meal, Kara curled onto the couch with her stuffed bare eyelids drooping. Michael carried her gently to her room, tucking her beneath a soft blanket decorated with stars. "Good night, Daddy." Kara mumbled, "Good night, sweetheart." He brushed her forehead with a kiss, then stepped out, closing the door halfway. Dana stood in the hallway, watching him with quiet admiration. "You're a good father," she said. Michael leaned against the doorway, sighing softly. "I'm just trying to be what she needs." "No," Dana said, shaking her head. "You're more than that. You give her peace. You give her safety. Those things are rare." Michael met her eyes. "You helped give her safety, too." Maybe, Dana said quietly. "But she has you every day. That's what matters." They walked back into the kitchen where golden light still poured across the counter like spilled honey. Dana stood near the window, looking at the fading sun. "Michael," she said softly, "I've spent my whole life serving something bigger than myself. Duty. Command. My country." She paused, "But no one ever taught me how to come home." Michael approached his steps, slow. "You don't have to know how," he said gently. "Home meets you halfway." Dana inhaled the words, touching something fragile deep within her. After today, she murmured, "I realized something. I've spent years giving everything I had to the world, but the world never gave anything back. Until now." Michael's brow softened. "What did it give you?" Dana turned to him. The floating light caught her eyes, judged soft, vulnerable. "You," she whispered. For a moment, neither moved. The world felt suspended, quiet, full waiting. Michael stepped closer, the distance between them, thinning like air at the edge of dawn. "I want you in our life, Dana," he said softly. "Not because of what happened today, not because of the account, but because Kara lights up when she sees you, and because I haven't felt this kind of peace in years." Dana's breath trembled. "Michael," she whispered, "I want to be here, with you, with Kara." She swallowed, not out of duty, but out of choice. He reached out slowly, giving her every chance to step away. She didn't. Their hands met, warm, steady, effortless. A connection forged, not in crisis, not in adrenaline, but in the simple truth of two people who had walked through shadows and finally found light. Michael gently lifted her hand. From the hallway, Kara's sleepy voice drifted faintly. "Daddy, is Commander Dana staying?" Dana smiled softly, eyes glistening. Michael glanced toward Kara's room, then back at Dana. "If she wants to," he said. Dana answered without hesitation. "I do." Michael exhaled a breath that felt like releasing years of quiet loneliness. Dana stepped closer until her forehead touched his. Not a kiss. Not yet. Something purer. A promise. From the window, the first stars appeared, shimmering against the fading sky. Michael whispered, "We don't have to fight alone anymore." Dana closed her eyes. "No," she said softly. "Not anymore." Kara shuffled sleepily from her room, rubbing her eyes. She climbed into Dana's arms without hesitation. Dana held her naturally, instinctively, like she had always belonged there. Michael wrapped an arm around both of them. A father. A child. A woman who had finally allowed herself to feel. A new family formed, not by blood, but by choice courage and quiet, persistent love. Outside, the wind carried the faintest scent of the sea. Inside, warmth filled the house like a blessing, and in that simple kitchen flooded with starlight, their story didn't end. It began. A quiet beginning. A hopeful beginning. A beginning born not from battle, but from love. Before we close today's story, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Our community is filled with wonderful people from every corner of the world, and your messages always bring us so much joy. Please share your hometown or state in the comments. It truly helps us feel connected. And if this story touched your heart, or reminded you of the quiet strength and kindness still alive in this world, I warmly invite you to subscribe to our channel. We share stories of hope, dignity, and second chances. Stories meant to brighten your day and remind you that goodness still matters. Thank you sincerely for spending your precious time with us today. Your presence, your support, and your kindness mean more than words can say. Until the next story, take care, stay safe, and may peace always find its way to your home.